profession as a horror tuber.
This was inevitable. You must rebuild what you've destroyed. Save me from my enemies.
Hello chillers, it's me, your horror homie Vass, and this is a response video to a horror film review I recently watched. To bring you up to speed, I did one of these responses last year to another review by the same horror tuber called Matt from the channel Scaredy. That movie was the mid-80s horror comedy classic House, and this one is the 1990 classic Nightbreed, which are two movies I absolutely love, and Matt most definitely does not. If you want some background details on the reviewer, Matt, and his channels, I highly recommend watching my response video to his, and this is me being charitable, lackluster house review. I don't know, maybe he rushed these reviews out and got a bit careless, but there's some glaringly obvious mistakes and he bungled a lot of his arguments. Maybe he figured no one would notice or care, so he didn't feel the need to refine or fix the problems, as they would inevitably affect the flow and vibe of his reviews. I can only guess. Right then, let's set our sights on this Nightbreed review, titled Clive Barker's Nightbreed is a Mess. Okay, so this response and the original review is full of spoilers, so please bear that in mind. Nightbreed is fantastic, a top tier film in my books, so whether you've seen it or not, I highly recommend checking it out before watching this response, as it will definitely inform the content of this video. This Scaredy Cat review, it's actually about 6 months old. You see, I stopped following Matt after commenting, purely out of common courtesy, you understand, that I had made a response video to his house review. It was roundly ignored, and then he began deleting the comments. I did not like that very much. Fast forward a year, I just happened on his channel again and looked down his video list, and this one jumped out at me. Watched it and it was super flawed. It's only a 7-minute review, and I would have liked to have refuted specific claims like I did with Matt's house review, but this Nightbreed review was, plainly speaking, a train wreck from start to finish. So I'm just going to let it play through and respond to his issues and criticisms as they appear, and you can make your own minds up whether he makes valid points or if he's being insincere in his polemics. Let me be crystal clear, it's not about liking or not liking this film. My objections are simply with his arguments, understanding and reasoning. The ideal outcome would be to get Matt to reconsider his assessment of Nightbreed, or even just give the movie another shot. I'm going to be respectful at all times because I don't hate Matt or anything. He's done some good videos, just not this one. Well, what are we waiting for? In the words of Tone Loc,
Let's do it.
Hello Scaredy Cats, it's me, Scaredy Matt. On paper, Nightbreed is a movie practically made for me personally. A movie full of weird-looking monsters getting into fistfights with the police.
Nightbreed is emphatically not about monsters getting into fistfights with the police, not even close. That doesn't even occur until the start of the final act when they break Boone out of jail.
I love a coward.
As a matter of fact, very little fighting between the cops and the Nightbreed is hand-to-hand combat. I'm gonna let this pass though, because I don't want to come across too nitpicky or pedantic.
Written and directed by Clive Barker, the guy who wrote Hellraiser.
I mention it only in passing, but Barker wrote and directed that one too.
But more importantly, named the movie Midnight Meat Train?
What are you laughing for?
I don't know.
And he also made pretty much nothing else good ever?
You don't know shit, buddy.
He made pretty much nothing else good ever? I have a problem with statements that are both definite and unclear. Is made referring to the movies Barker directed or wrote? Barker cannot be held responsible for how his stories have been adapted into movies. Even so, Candyman and Hellbound are both better than good and have easily stood the test of time. If Matt is referring to Clive Barker as a writer-director, well, Barker has only directed 2 features aside from Nightbreed, and Matt just inferred that he likes Hellraiser. By mere deduction, we must conclude that Matt's declaration can only be referring to 1995's Lord of Illusion, in which case it seems a tad hyperbolic to say
Also made pretty much nothing else good ever?
I would strongly disagree with that assessment, but hey, they're just opinions. However, plainly speaking, the phraseology
Also made pretty much nothing else good ever?
just isn't justified however you look at it.
All in the early 90s made with practical effects? It's a story of a guy realizing he's destined to become part of a parallel society of monster people who live in a graveyard and worship a big demon statue man named Baphomet. It's kind of an allegory for being queer, kind of an allegory for colonialism, but mostly it's a big mess.
We need to stop right here and break this down, because Matt speaks very fast and he said a whole lot there in a very, very short space of time. Okay, 3 things he said. 1.
It's kind of an allegory for being queer.
That's a fair enough speculation, I guess, but it would be equally valid to insert any outcast and persecuted community for this metaphor. But as we go on, you will see Matt will fix his assumed interpretation as if his assertion is implicitly the intended one in the film, when it's merely conjecture. I found no indication pinpointing the oppression of a specific minority group, or that the film had that intention. 2.
Kind of an allegory for colonialism.
Again, that's fine. It's a broad theme you can sort of sense bubbling just under the surface as the movie goes on. Later in the review, he makes a comparison to the treatment of the Native Americans and them being forced into reservations. And I can sort of see it, but Midian is not really a reservation. The monsters weren't put there by the humans. It's like a hidden sanctuary, and the Nightbreed are a disparate group hiding their existence from the world. It doesn't really match well enough to confidently put your finger on the specific experiences of what the indigenous people of North America went through. I don't know, maybe it's because the Nightbreed are referred to as the tribes of the moon. Anyway, we're going to come back to that.
I'll get back to you.
Finally, number 3.
But mostly, it's a big mess.
This is the crux of his critique. And, you know, you can make the argument. Objectively, the narrative is somewhat disjointed. However, his reasoning is very poor, and this will become starkly evident as we go on. Incidentally, it has 0 effect on my enjoyment of Nightbreed. It's a fun, ambitious supernatural monster film with lots of light moments, cool imagery and creature effects, and badass characters. The movie is a ride and has more than enough story development to carry you through without having to make sense of every plot point and character motivation along the way. Again, we'll get to that. Go on, Matt, I'm all ears.
Here's the thing about Nightbreed. I expected it to be cheesy. I expected it to be weirdly horny because it's Clive Barker. I thought there'd be a distinct possibility that it would be completely incoherent. What I didn't expect is that it would not only be incoherent, but hostile towards the very notion of coherence, lacking both a comprehensible story and thematic cohesion, as though it was deliberately created to suggest meaning, but not to actually possess meaning. To draw you in, pique your interest, and then always hold its secrets tantalizingly just out of reach. A movie designed to drive the reviewer mad in a quixotic quest to untangle that is ultimately fruitless.
Okay, so there's the hypothesis of Matt's review. In a nutshell, the story of Nightbreed is so incomprehensible and so thematically incoherent that it would be foolish and pointless to even attempt to follow and find meaning. A lofty claim indeed. From this point on, Matt, willfully and with great carelessness, overlooks the story beats, dialogue and action that would more than adequately explain basic narrative and arc that even the most casual viewer could loosely follow. Furthermore, he defines the undertones of the story so rigidly that it becomes impossible to successfully contextualize. So Madman Matt has thrown down this challenge to find an overarching meaning to the story. He says it's impossible and foolish to even try. It will drive you mad.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
If I were to boil down the overall meaning or theme in Nightbreed, it would be that humans are the real monsters. I may have blown Matt's mind. But I cheated. It's written on the blurb on the back of the box, as is the basic plot. It's not a David Lynch film we are talking about here. Plainly speaking, it's a monster movie, and it can be fully enjoyed without any subtext whatsoever. And I submit to you, Matty, that you would have enjoyed the movie far more if you just watched it at face value as a really imaginative and groovy monster flick, like the vast majority do, myself included. Incidentally, I want to just put in my 2 pence worth on Matt's suggestion that Nightbreed is cheesy.
I expected it to be cheesy.
In my opinion, Nightbreed is a quality, well-made horror film and super original. The sets, costumes, makeup, score and sound design are all for the most part stellar. Can you think of a film like it before or since? I really don't know where Matt gets cheesy from. I've never heard anyone call it that.
What the hell was that?
Now look, I don't think it's a perfect film. It's not particularly scary, and some of the acting can come across performative and stagey, but that is the case with all of Barker's work, and it's a lot less intrusive than it is in, say, Lord of Illusions. I think where Clive Barker really excels is when it comes to memorable and fully realised villains and imaginative storytelling.
Nightbreed is the story of Aaron Boone, played by Craig Sheffer. He has recurring dreams of a magical land full of monsters called Midian, where all your sins are forgiven, and also it's full of monsters. I don't know if I mentioned that. Boone needs his sins forgiven, you see, because the psychiatrist, Dr. Decker, played by David Cronenberg, is a serial killer who convinces Boone that he went into a fugue state and committed Decker's murders, and then drugs him with LSD for some reason.
I think I can help Matt here. Decker is Boone's psychiatrist, but also a deranged serial killer. He learns that Boone is plagued by dark and violent visions of a place called Midian, full of monsters where all your sins are forgiven. Boone just thinks they are bad dreams. But Decker, he has found his scapegoat, framing Boone, making him believe he committed Decker's crimes. So he gives Boone pills, says that they will control his violent impulses, and tells him he has 24 hours to turn himself in. Actually, they are hallucinogens to mess his mind up even more, so he no longer trusts his own mind and ultimately accepts guilt. Everything I just said is laid out clear as day in the film.
Oh, of course it is, of course it is, of course it is, of course it is.
No problem.
Decker's the standout element of this movie. Cronenberg's performance is incredible, choosing to play the character with this dry wit and upbeat attitude that makes his brutal killings far more memorable than if he played it straight.
I was born to destroy Boone and the breed together.
You're crazy.
No, I'm deaf.
Matt gets this exactly right. Decker as a character is the best part of the film.
He's a guy that likes killing, and it's just another part of his day, like it's just a thing he does.
However, he doesn't kill because it's just a thing he does. Not at all. He literally gives the reason as to who and why he kills in the very same scene.
I've cleaned up a lot of breeders. Families like cesspools. Filth making filth making filth. And I did it over and over and over again. But it was all leading me here. I was born to destroy Boone and the breed together.
Furthermore, Decker is a substantial part of the film, so that slasher element alone would make it worth watching in my books. More than that though, Nightbreed is full of great, fun, rich characters with Peliquin and Narcissi being real standouts, and if anything I would have welcomed a lot more screen time from them. Alas, Matt does not agree, and every compliment is at the expense of another facet of the film.
And his mask is bitchin'! By far one of the coolest slasher masks I've ever seen. It sticks out in this movie full of people in full monster makeup, all of whom look kind of dull and goofy in comparison.
Dull and goofy. I strongly disagree.
Which is a real shame because All Nightbreed really had to do to work was show off a variety of fun monsters, and it kinda does.
Your history, buddy.
And in the very next breath, he shows us some badass monsters as if trying to disprove his own point.
Because, spoiler alert, Midian is real and full of living dead people called Nightbreed.
This is the most annoying part of Matt's bad reviews. He says something that is so contrary to what most horror fans think, and he does it in such a throwaway manner it beggars belief. Even people who don't like Nightbreed can appreciate the creative monster makeup and effects. It's the unique selling point of the film. He might as well be saying, oh, by the way, the earth is flat, or Bruce Willis is a dynamic actor. It just doesn't compute.
They can convert people like vampires, but only some people, I think. It's not clear.
I really think Matt wasn't paying enough attention here.
You'll get no pity from me!
Midian is full of a vast assortment of monsters and freaks, all with different powers and weaknesses. Why he would think they all became breed in the same fashion, I don't know. Pelican, who is more werewolf than vampire, bit Boone and he became Nightbreed. Therefore, Boone biting Laurie to save him from death seems to track logically, but really, who cares? It's a monster movie.
When they die, they reveal their true faces. Spooky faces. Get this, everybody. You're not going to believe this. It turns out that Boone, get this, he's the chosen one who, according to an ancient prophecy, will save the Nightbreed from destruction or some shit. Hey, Nightbreed, what do you do? Figure out what it is you do. You had all summer to figure out what you do.
Shush! Go make a cup of tea.
Prophecy. I would suggest the drawings on the wall show the past, present and future of how what remained of the tribes of shapeshifters came together in Midian, summoned by Baphomet, and became Nightbreed, and that Midian would inevitably be destroyed, and Boone would lead them to a new sanctuary and salvation. It feels like the whole point of the movie, Boone's journey to become Cabal.
Save me from my enemies. You are no longer Boone. You are Cabal.
I have never known what to make of a movie less.
You are so blind! You so do not understand! You weren't there at the beginning. You don't know how good it was, how important. This is it for you.
Feels like 1,000 different ideas, none of which work together,
You know what? Go upstairs and make some tea.
crammed into one movie. On the one hand, it's kind of like an X-Men story, a group of outsiders, most of whom have special powers, having to hide themselves from an intolerant and hostile world. And the movie definitely wants you to think of it in those terms, that you should relate to them and feel sorry for their persecution, while showing you that they're sadistic assholes who defile corpses and try to eat people.
Sometimes you are completely hopeless.
Now they are monsters. They are predicated to do what monsters do. They took Sanctuary Midian, which is underneath an abandoned cemetery, for safety and to be left alone. They follow the Lord, stay away from the naturals, humans. They are still monsters though, so it's going to be kind of dangerous for humans to go down there. Monsters are not known for their restraint, and natural instinct is always just beneath the surface. It's worth pointing out again that the breed are not a monolith, and treating them as such is a dangerous road to go down. Look at that signpost up ahead. It says, racist. It was mostly Pelican, who's a total maverick, and Narcissi, who was just initiated into the breed and their laws, who were acting like, well, monsters. I don't know if Matt was expecting the Nightbreed to serve tea and biscuits to visitors.
Like the X-Men, this serves as an allegory for a variety of minority experiences, but particularly in Nightbreed's case, the queer experience.
The X-Men comparison is, plainly speaking, obvious.
Oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that!
And I've seen it many times, and wow, what a fine way to shoehorn this queer analogy and really drive it home. I still don't buy it.
I disagree, homeboy.
Next they'll be saying Starsky and Hutch has gay overtones.
Boone has a secret desire within himself.
I never saw it as Boone's secret desire. It's a calling to fulfill his destiny to become Cabal, the saviour of the Nightbreed. He's being pulled towards his fate. Not really queer-esque at all. Predestination.
Boone has a secret desire within himself that he is told is false and shameful.
False and shameful. He believed his visions weren't real himself. He thought he was going crazy until he met Narcissi in the hospital.
Take me to Midian.
You said Midian. What do you know about it?
It's where the monsters go.
So you know where it is?
They sent you to take me.
First, I have to show you.
That's how it works. There's a face beneath this face.
No! Let me! You have to see me! First I show you, then you take me with you!
I don't really know what to say about the notion it was shameful. I feel a citation is needed for that claim.
Until he meets like-minded people and becomes part of their community and culture. This community must remain hidden, or else face repression and persecution from the outside world. Great, sure, yep, okay, makes sense so far.
Does it though? I find it pretty incredible that Matt has so much trouble and puts in so little effort deciphering straightforward storytelling and narrative, but is jumping through so many hoops, trying so hard to twist the thematic elements of the story in a vain attempt to assign a specific agenda to it, and as you're about to see, deride the film for failing in that endeavour. It's queer, in the other sense of the word.
But also, the Nightbreed are legitimately sadistic, violent.
At the risk of repeating myself, they're monsters, dude. Why are you surprised when they act beastly? This ain't Disney, bro.
And in most cases, actively homicidal.
In most cases, it's not all or even most Nightbreed. Peregrine, he's very independent-minded, a rule breaker, and the likes of the Berserkers, they're just
Mad bastards.
The clue is in the name.
One of them tries to eat Boone when he's first introduced, despite being told that it's against the secret Nightbreed laws.
Secret to who?
What are you saying?
I don't know what you are talking about. Not a clue.
What's going on?
He mustn't! It's the law!
Fuck the law. I want meat.
And if they had to specifically write into their laws that you're not allowed to eat people, that kind of implies that before they made the law, it was a pretty big problem. So it's not just this guy's thing, it's a thing that all Nightbreed just kind of want to do.
They're monsters? What part of monsters is so hard to understand? I'm guessing the law is that you can't kill naturals, humans, by any method, and probably because it would bring others to Midian and their safe haven would be in jeopardy. Just track it back. Before they came to Midian, there were all types of shapeshifters, probably scavenging for food, for survival, and I'm pretty sure they ain't vegan, so as Peregrine says in the clip,
That means your meat for the beast.
this needs zero explanation. How freaking cool are these clips? Imagine ragging on a movie so hard and all the scenes you show from the film are kick-ass. I could have saved myself a lot of time and just shown Matt's review, edited him out of it, and be like, watch these clips, and at the end, tell me you didn't enjoy the hell out of it.
Or like this guy who just defiles a corpse as a joke. Or this guy who just tries to grab a random woman walking by with clearly sinister intent.
Narcissi is just a wild and crazy character.
You were wonderful.
And this fat dude, right after he says,
There goes the neighborhood.
you are taking this way too serious, my dude. They are comic relief characters. As for Dancing with a Corpse, it's a light, funny comedy moment. If you're taking it seriously, you are missing the point.
This is the same problem that X-Men or shows like True Blood run into. The allegory kind of falls apart a little bit when there's a legitimate reason for the persecutors to fear the persecuted. Like in real life, for example, gay people, and I have this on pretty good authority, are seldom cannibals or murderers.
I'm afraid the allegory fell apart when you assigned it to being specifically about gays. Look at it this way. You have a race of shapeshifters who have been genocided for millennia to near extinction by the naturals. It stands to reason they might not have a politically acceptable Western liberal secular response when they find a human in the only safe haven they have left.
Nightbreed also goes for this clumsy, half-hearted attempt to compare the titular monsters to Native Americans.
Does it though? Seems more like your specific reading. I see barely a trace. There's some correlation, but I'm sure you could just as easily pick any Aboriginals. Moving from generalities to specifics is unhelpful and only succeeds in pointing out how it's inaccurate.
Dime, why you do this to me?
The conflict between human and Nightbreed is historically genocidal, with humans trying to wipe out the Nightbreed due to religious conviction that they're demonic, which, you know, they do worship a giant statue man literally named Baphomet, so, you know, A little bit.
Let's analyse what Matt says here. As far as the monsters being demonic, there are superficial reasons you may think that. Some of the breed look demonic with horns or whatever, but they are a race of shapeshifters, so they come in all shapes and sizes. And yes, their god is called Baphomet, but it's not that Baphomet. He doesn't have a goat head or anything. And did the humans even know about the Nightbreed god Baphomet beforehand? It appears they didn't. Clive Barker fills his work with religious iconography, and Nightbreed is no different. Midian is not the same Midian you find in the Bible and the Quran. It is just a narrative tool. Furthermore, you could only really say the Nightbreed were partly wiped out due to religious conviction. For one, they didn't come to be Nightbreed until they came to Midian, and for two, there just has to be more to it than that, or the monsters would have all just migrated to China by now instead of Canada.
The breed refer to themselves as the tribe. They're led by an elder, hilariously named Dirk.
You shut your mouth!
Yes, the elder is called Dirk, but who cares? He is referred to as Lylesburg during the whole movie. Not once did they call him Dirk, so why even bring it up? So Michael Myers' middle name is Audrey, but knowing that doesn't warrant criticism of Halloween, does it? It's neither here nor there.
Played by Doug Bradley, Pinhead himself, but don't get excited because he's super boring.
I'm sure Doug Bradley is devastated Matt thought his character was boring. I think he played his role very well. Lylesburg has one of the more quotable parts in Nightbreed. Boon! 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 It is forbidden, that is the law. Absolutely brilliant.
They're driven from their ancestral homes onto a reservation, here a graveyard.
We've been here before.
Deja vu.
Maybe reservation. I say sanctuary, safe haven, or refuge is far more accurate. Nobody set aside that land. The breed made their home under the cemetery in Midian to escape the humans.
And also, they're flesh-eating monsters with worm attacks.
You're a racist!
So it's still not a great allegory. Clumsy metaphors aside, Nightbreed mostly squanders its ridiculous premise.
Conceptually, I think it's a kick-ass idea. I remember first hearing about it in Fangoria and I was chomping at the bit to see it. Also, what a strange turn of phrase.
Squanders its ridiculous premise.
How do you squander a ridiculous premise? If it is ridiculous, what is there to squander exactly? Answers in the comment section.
It spends most of the movie explaining itself to you, and by the end it still felt underdeveloped.
Does it? Explaining what exactly? I really have no idea what Matt's talking about here. He spent the whole review saying how nothing is clear, and now he says most of the movie is spent explaining itself. I am struggling to think of any scenes where it's just exposition. I can find nothing. Again, a citation here, just one example would have been helpful.
Like they were counting on a sequel to tighten up the mythology?
I think you know what I'm gonna say. It's a monster movie. What are you expecting? Like an origin story for every creature in Midian?
I watched the director's cut.
Excuse me?
I watched the director's cut.
A baking powder?
I watched the director's cut.
What do you mean?
This whole review is for the director's cut. I am at a bit of a loss what made Matt choose to review this version when most people will be more familiar with the theatrical version by about 25 years. This really puts a fresh light on the review. So let me put this in some context. Clive Barker's original director's cut of Nightbreed has over 40 minutes of new and altered footage, and some bits removed from the theatrical version. It runs 20 minutes longer than the theatrical version, with the sole purpose of fleshing out the story, the characters, their relationships, subtext and motivations. All of this talk about not understanding what's happening, allegory this, mythology that, all of it was for the director's cut. I could kind of roll with some of the structural and narrative issues with respect to the theatrical cut, but really, having this hard a time with the director's cut is pretty baffling. I really believe if Matt had all these questions for this fun, stylish monster movie, he definitely should have taken time out and watched it a second time to study and analyse and look for answers. I may be wrong, but judging by the content of this review, it appears he maybe didn't do that. I watched both cuts of Nightbreed before attempting this response, and without the need to deep dive into the minute details, and I had no problems following along and didn't have much difficulty finding the answers to refuting most of the issues that apparently gave Matt so much trouble. Incidentally, I far prefer the theatrical cut. for many reasons, but that final scene alone trumps anything we get in the longer cut. You know the one I'm talking about.
So I don't know if maybe it was clearer in the theatrical cut, but I was left with a lot of questions.
And I really hope you see this video, Matt, because I am the magic man. I have the answers. Maybe not the ones you want, but the ones you need. Is it over? No.
Both versions end on a cliffhanger setting up a potential Nightbreed 2, but obviously that never happened.
He has a really odd expression while saying that. There were many reasons why Nightbreed never succeeded, not least the fact that it was mismarketed as a slasher, and also audiences weren't quite ready to root and sympathise with the monsters. I would say it's pretty well regarded now and has, at the very least, a cult following with fans.
The cliffhanger also kind of drags the movie down a little bit because in order to arrive at it, they had to have a character's motivation completely 360 in between scenes in a way that completely contradicts everything we'd seen of that character beforehand. In order to arrive at it, they had to have a character's motivation
Completely 360.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
First you're my friend, now you turn a 360 on me.
180, you stupid spaghetti slurping cretin. 180. If I did a 360, I'd go completely around and end up back where I started.
What?
Trust me.
In order to arrive at it, they had to have a character's motivation completely 360 in between scenes in a way that completely contradicts everything we'd seen of that character beforehand. Like literally, a character goes from virtuous to villainous off screen for seemingly no reason.
I will give him that. He is, of course, referring to Ashbury the priest, who in the director's cut is a benign, pitiful character, and then becomes villainous all of a sudden. Not for seemingly no reason, though. He is burned and hideously transformed by the blood of Baphomet during the final attack on Midian by the humans, and as a result seeks revenge on the god Baphomet and his followers, the breed, for it. That's a pretty solid reason for him, and none of that was off screen. More than that, and this is another good reason to check out the theatrical cut, in that version, Ashbury is bad right from the get-go.
You're an abomination, Boo. You have to die.
Hear me?
In my opinion, it was a poor decision to change it just so they could have some additional scenes in there.
It's not all bad, though. The movie has some outstanding villainous performances from David Cronenberg and Charles Hayde. Most of the scenes exploring the underground layer of the Nightbreed are fun, even if Danny Elfman's score gives it too much of a PG-13 Tim Burton-y vibe.
This is one of my favourite Elfman scores, and you're supposed to have a sense of wonder and amazement exploring the cavernous world of Midian, and that's what Elfman is known for, and probably one of the reasons he was hired. Moreover, the whole of the movie is scored very appropriately to the events on screen. There's plenty of variation in the music overall. This is not a great criticism. The music is one of the strongest parts of Nightbreed.
Some of the monster designs are fun, though their screen time is limited. Some of the puppets even verge on wet. They don't quite get there, but they're close. They're moist puppets, at least.
Some of the monster designs are fun, though their screen time is limited. That seems to contradict what Matt has previously stated.
It sticks out in this movie full of people in full monster makeup, all of whom look kind of dull and goofy in comparison, which is a real shame because all Nightbreed really had to do to work was show off a variety of fun monsters.
Moving on.
If I didn't know what a passion project this was for Clive Barker, I'd think this was a movie by committee.
Made by committee. Really strange comment to make, as I wasn't aware that this was a thing.
It very much feels like an interesting premise that they didn't want to explore fully.
Interesting premise. Again, this contradicts your earlier statement.
Nightbreed mostly squanders its ridiculous premise.
Perhaps you mean interestingly ridiculous? Or ridiculously interesting?
It very much feels like an interesting premise that they didn't want to explore fully.
I think they explored the backstory exactly enough
to save room for future installments and make this a franchise with semi-annual releases.
Sequels are very common especially in the horror genre, planned or not. If a film is successful, odds are you will get a sequel. This seems like a bit of a red herring, to be honest with you.
It has that vibe of being kind of like things you already like, but not quite understanding what makes those things work. And there's a lot of money on screen. The production design looks expensive, even if it doesn't always look great. But still, there's some monsters in it. There are worse things to watch in between precisely 2 beers on a Sunday night.
That's it. Matt just ends it there. And with the thing I've been trying to tell him the whole time. It's a fun monster movie, dude. Just enjoy it like 99% of people who dig the movie. No queer nonsense, no Native American stuff. It makes sense just fine for what it is. My conclusion of Matt's review is that it just doesn't hold up to critical analysis.
Plain and simple.
Say it!
Then don't say it.
Nightbreed isn't half the mess Matt's review turned out to be. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, guys. I am wasted. That was so long, so much to set straight. I know Matt is never going to watch this or acknowledge the video, but the whole point why I felt compelled to do this is that when all is said and done, we are horror fans. We've got to stand up for the films we love. Matt's review was nothing more than a pretty nonsensical hit piece. He even starts contradicting himself by the end. The review, it needed to be corrected, and if no one else is going to do it, we need to do it ourselves. If any of you would like to tag this video on his channel, hashtag ScaredyCatsFail, please do. His channel is linked in the description. If I do it myself, my comment will probably just get deleted. So until next time, thanks very much for watching. I'm losing my voice a little bit, and don't forget, horror lives matter. So long, chillers.